Hi, and welcome to this live reading from Beginnings and Endings, a selection of short stories by Jane Suen, and this is presented by Itsy Bitsy Book Bits. Chapter 1, Grits Girl. "How fast can you say scattered, smothered, covered?" Eric asked. I gulped my coffee and set it on the counter. "How fast can you say it?" I teased as I picked apart the hash on my plate, wishing I'd added the diced tomatoes. I was famished, so I'd ordered the hash on top of my usual bowl of grits. "Girl, I love my grits." A satisfied escaped my lips as another spoonful slid down my throat. Eric laughed. He was busy digging into his scrambled eggs. "That good, huh?" "Uh-huh," I managed to mumble. The cook outdid himself today. I glanced toward the grill, seeking him out. I raised my mug, mouthing, "Compliments to the chef." We were seated at the counter right up close to the action. I liked to watch and listen, especially when the hustle and bustle of a busy kitchen filled the air. The clinking dishes and shouted orders mixed with the sizzle and snap of food cooking. "You been to the new cafe next to the fancy boutique?" I asked. Eric shook his head. "You?" "Yeah, I went to try out their grits. They had the cheesy kind." I crinkled my nose. "Don't like those." "Nah, too cheesy." "You're picky." "No kidding," I said. "And?" "I always come back here," I smiled, thinking back to that day almost 2 years ago. We were both students then, struggling to make ends meet. After a marathon study session at the library, our group quickly dissipated, leaving the two of us standing outside on the steps. I lingered for a moment. I admit I was a bit curious about Eric, a quiet guy who seemed serious and polite. He broke the silence. "Hungry?" "Starved." He shuffled his backpack, shifting his weight. "What do you like to eat?" "Grits," I said without hesitation. I could see it took him by surprise, and I imagined him thinking absurdly, "At this time of night?" He recovered quickly and smiled. "I know just the place. Breakfast 24/7 and all the grits you can eat." That night I had my grits, and we talked for hours until the pre-dawn morning. We were high on caffeine, supplied by a perky, rail-thin waitress named Belle with her ever-ready coffee refills. It was a slow night at the diner, with only the grill cook and waitress working. We managed to come back every week thereafter. It became a tradition, our tradition. In between our visits, I'd try out all the new cafes, always comparing their meals to this place, our homey place with its plain, unpretentious grits. "I remember," whispered Eric, his warm breath tickling my ear. I turned to him, seeking out the familiar parts of his face, the dark curls sweeping over his brow, the faint lines creasing when he frowned and when he smiled, the intense brown eyes. I reached out to trace his jawline. He caught my fingers, enveloping my petite hand in the warmth of his palm. Content and happy, I savored the moment. He leaned in to give me a kiss. As our kiss broke, I opened my eyes. He was grinning a happy, silly grin. "You know how many times we've been here?" I hadn't been counting, but ran a quick estimate in my head. "Our 100th time today," he blurted out before I could answer. "Every week for almost 2 years," I murmured. "Here." He carefully placed a small painted wooden box on the counter in front of me. "What's this?" "Something I made." I squealed with delight, running my fingers over the beautiful pale blue whitewash, feeling the smooth surface. "It's lovely." Pleased, Eric smiled. Tapping the clasp, he said, "Open it." "Oh." I gasped as I popped open the lid. I stared at the ring inside, a tiny diamond the size of a pencil tip perched on top. "Will you?" he asked with a quaver in his voice, stopping mid-sentence. I tore my eyes away from the ring, locking my gaze with his. "Will you marry me?" "Oh, Eric!" I hesitated, my mouth forming a silent O while my mind wandered, charting a path running through meadows and brooks, crossing hills and valleys, going up and down and around. I saw myself on the path, walking at times, stumbling, falling, and getting up again. I wasn't alone, but I couldn't see the face of the man who was beside me. He shifted slightly, clearing his throat. I caught sight of the sparkle in his eyes, gentle yet strong, shining bright and bathing me with love. My heart fluttered. Will he love me when I'm old and wrinkled or sick? Will he be there when I'm down to pick me up? Will it be Eric and me taking this journey together? I went back to the path, searching for answers. "Our 100th time here," I mumbled, my memories taking me back to the beginning when I first met him and the times since then. My thoughts seemed to run through my head for an eternity, but it was only a few seconds. My hand strayed to pluck a piece of lint on my jeans idling there. And in that moment, I knew. Here, in my favorite grits place, the man I was looking for, a man with true grit, was right beside me. I smiled. Yes, I repeated it, shouting, yes, as he slid the ring on my finger.